Back to the Pilot. Back to the Pilot is the fifth episode of the 10th season of the animated comedy series Family Guy. It originally aired on Fox in the United States on November 13, 2011. In Back to the Pilot, two of the show's main characters, baby genius Stewie and anthropomorphic dog Brian, both voiced by series creator Seth MacFarlane, use a time machine to travel back in time to the first episode of the series, Death Has a Shadow. Trouble ensues, however, when Brian tells his former self about the September 11 attacks, causing the present to be dramatically changed and ultimately resulting in a second civil war. The two must then prevent themselves from going back to the past in the first place, but soon realize that it will be much more difficult than they had originally thought. The episode was written by Mark Hentemann and directed by Dominic Bianchi. It received high praise from critics for its storyline and many cultural references, in addition to receiving some criticism for its portrayal of the September 11 attacks, an example of 9/11 humor despite being self-aware. According to Nielsen ratings, it was viewed by 6.1 million people in its original airing. The episode featured guest performances by Lacey Chabert, Chris Cox, Ralph Garman, Christine Lakin, Phil LaMarr and Fred Tatasciore, along with several recurring guest voice actors for the series. Plot. In 2011, when Brian approaches Stewie about helping him find a tennis ball he had buried, Stewie asks if Brian remembers the date that he lost it. Brian tells him that he buried it on January 31, 1999, the day of the series premiere on Fox. Using Stewie's time machine to travel back to that date, the two soon come upon the Griffin family in 1999, but notice that their past looks more strange than they remembered it. The family continually pauses for cutaways, and Meg's voice sounds different. Stewie also points out that this may be his first memory, and that is the day Peter made his eye go over his nose an animation error that actually occurred in the pilot. Warning Brian not to alter the past by getting the tennis ball and advising him to instead memorize its location, Stewie goes into his room to set up their return to the present before 1999 Stewie suddenly enters. The two Stewies then meet, and 2011 Stewie tells 2011 Brian to come out from his hiding place after explaining himself to 1999 Stewie. However, hanging outside the window, 2011 Brian falls onto 1999 Peter's car as he drives to the bachelor party at 1999 Glenn Quagmire's house. 2011 Stewie finds 2011 Brian, and the two then attempt to return to the present, but find that the transportation device's batteries, having converted the return pad to take deep batteries instead of uranium after their trouble in Germany, are running low and moved only a bit forward in time to Super Bowl Roman III. The two manage to take advantage of 1999 Peter dumping his extra welfare money out of a blimp above the stadium to collect the money needed to purchase new batteries and start making their way back, but not before briefly landing at 1999 Peter's trial and running into the 1999 Kool-Aid Man and talking to him, making him miss his cute. It is only after the two return to the present that Stewie learns that Brian deliberately told his past self about the September 11 attacks ahead of time, allowing 2001 Brian to beat American Airlines Flight 11 hijackers Mohammed Atta and Abdulaziz Al-Amri with a baseball bat, and then preventing the other three planes from leaving. While watching the local news, it is also discovered that former President George W. Bush, who lost the 2004 election due to being unable to exploit people's fears without 9/11, has returned to Texas, which has seceded from the United States, along with the rest of the southern United States, reforming the Confederate States of America, resulting in a second of. Brian insists that things will still be better in the end, but when they travel into 2016, they find a computer-generated post-apocalyptic future caused by nuclear attacks all across the United States, resulting in the deaths of over 17 million people, including Cesar Millan, much to Brian's horror. Realizing that he made a mistake, Brian asks how the situation can be resolved. The two then return to 1999 to prevent Brian and Stewie from telling their past selves about the attacks. They then return to the present, where Stewie learns that Brian has taken false and undeserved credit for the Harry Potter novels. Seeing that Brian has learned nothing, a frustrated Stewie takes him back to 1999 again to try to prevent their past selves from telling any future events. However, this results in 50 incarnations of Stewie's and Brian's appearing to prevent them from telling the future. This includes one Brian and Stewie with their Peter, who says he was just looking for the bathroom, one Stewie, who has developed female breasts, another Brian and Stewie trapped in barbershop twirls, one Brian and Stewie dressed up in their banana outfits, and a Stewie who arrives with his Brian whose throat is slit. Having had enough of this, one Stewie tells all of his and Brian's numerous future selves. All the Brians and Stewies do as they are told. From there, Stewie takes Brian back a minute before their past selves arrive and forces them at gunpoint to return to their time. After initial confusion resulting with the Brian that just arrived being shot in the leg, they comply. With that, the altered timeline ceases to exist along with its corresponding Stewie and Brian. Back in the present, the other Stewie and Brian, who is recovering from the leg injury, talk about the possibility of causing havoc during every time travel trip. They are thankful for not altering the present timeline until Peter shows up with his friends' 1999 selves to drink beer to the game with the TV unplugged. Production and development. Series creator and executive producer Seth MacFarlane first announced the episode at the 2011 San Diego Comic-Con International in San Diego, California on July 23, 2011. MacFarlane notes in the DVD featurette that the episode was inspired by the Star Trek Deep Space Nine episode Trials and Tribulations. It was directed by series regular Dominic Bianchi in his second episode of the season. Bianchi also previously served as director for the series' landmark 150th episode Brian and Stewie. The episode was written by series showrunner and executive producer Mark Hentemann, who joined the show as a writer in its third season. Series regulars Peter Shin and James Purdom served as supervising directors, with Andrew Goldberg and Alex Carter serving as executive story editors, and Spencer Porter, Anthony Blasaksai, Mike Dizolitz, and Deepak Sethi serving as staff writers for the episode. Composer Ron Jones, who has worked on the series since its inception, returned to compose the music for Back to the Pilot. The episode was originally intended to be the seventh installation in the series' Hallmark Road 2 episodes, but it was changed before airing. The episode featured several examples of the old animation style that was used in the show's pilot episode, with the Griffin family all appearing in the lesser quality animation style in the past universe that Stewie and Brian traveled to. In addition to the regular cast, voice actor Chris Cox, actor Ralph Garman, and actress Christine Lakin guest starred in the episode. Archival recordings of actress Lacey Chabert and voice actors Phil LaMarr and Fred Tatasciore from Death Has a Shadow were used, although they still received credit. Recurring guest voice actors Patrick Warburton and writer John Vienner made minor appearances throughout the episode. Chabert's role in the episode was that of Meg Griffin in the pilot episode. Chabert had previously voiced Meg before eventually being replaced by actress Mila Kunis, who had a role on the television series That 70s Show during Family Guy's first season. Chabert left the series after completing the first production of episodes in order to focus on her schoolwork, as well as her participation in the television series Party of Five, with Kunis taking over the role after the first season. Reception.